All right, so the quadratic formula, x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And an easy way to remember this is to use a song. And the song is Pop Goes the Weasel. And the lyrics are x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. X is equal to negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. No. That's a way that you can memorize this. And when you get your test, it may be a no calculator test, so you might have to memorize this. You can do, well, let's take a look at this guy. X plus 5x plus 7 is equal to 0. Are there two numbers that I can multiply to get to 7 that would add up to 5? No. So in this case, I can't factor. So if you can't factor the quadratic formula. And I like to make things as easy as possible, especially with all these different formulas that you're going to get thrown at today, because you're going to get 3 different formulas. 3 formulas. Ooh, big deal. Now, here's what you do. First thing you do, I need my A, B, and my C. These are the numbers. The number A is over here because it's ax squared. I forgot to put the squared there. And then there's the bx plus c. So what's the number? The number is 1 because that's the number. That's the coefficient in front of x squared. There's only one of them, and we don't really write it, so that's what we're going to use. My b is 5. My c is 7. Now, in order to build all these different parts, I've come up with a method for doing things piecemeal, which means just doing little things at once, and then it comes up to the big thing. Because if you just plug in the numbers, that's where a lot of mistakes actually happen. What I like to do is I have A here, and then I like to figure out what 2A is right off the bat. So this is going to be 2 times 1, which is 2. Now with b, I want to figure out what b squared is right off the bat. What's 5 times 5? 25. And now I need my 4 times a times c. So I'm going to get 4 times a, which is what? Well, a is 1, so it's 4 times 1, which is 4, times my c value, which is 7. So what's 4 times 1 times 7? 28. And then with these two, subtract them. So I'll get 25 minus 28. What's 25 minus 28? Negative 3. And that's equal to my b squared minus 4ac. Because I took b squared and I subtracted off the 4ac, bam, I'm good to go. Well, now we're going to put stuff in there. So now, step 2 is we plug it back into the formula. And it's x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So x is equal to, what's the opposite of b? Well, b is 5, so what's the opposite of 5? Negative 5. Plus or minus, I figured out what b squared minus 4ac is already. What was it? It's this guy right here, the negative 3. So I put the negative 3 in the square root. And then 2a, I already figured out what 2a is. it's a 2. So now this becomes a lot easier type of problem, because I don't have to worry about calculating this inside a square root sign. I don't have to worry about anything else here. So just by doing a little bit of like pre-work, we could actually solve this up pretty easily. Now, when I have a negative number inside the square root, what can I pull out to make the number inside positive? I. So this is going to be I times the square root of 3. And at this point, now, normally, what you would do is you'd get 2 answers. You'd get 5 plus I times the square root of 3 over 2. Or you'd get, and that would be your x sub 1, your x sub 2 would be equal to, oh, forgot the negative. Negative 5 minus I times the square root of 3 over 2. All right. So now that you have these 2 values, what do these values mean? The potential answers that you're going to get from this, you're going to get 2 x values that are positive and they're real. You'll get 1 x value. It's positive. They're not positive, they're real. Sorry. It's real. Or you'll get 2 x values that are complex. And over here we got 2 complex answers. And they're complex because there's an I in it. Remember, they're imaginary, so they have to be what we call complex. Now, here's the situation. If you end up, and it all comes down to b squared minus 4ac. If this is positive, you're going to get 2 real. Oh, let me jump up here. All right, and if you get 2 real values for x, if the b squared minus 4ac is a positive value, you're going to get the zeros. And that's going to be, what is another name for a 0? No. Help me out here. X dash in x in. No. Yes. All right, so you get an x-intercept. Now, if this actually ends up being 0, and it could be 0, you get 1 real value for x. You get 1 0, but we call this a double root. And if I wanted to draw a picture, you'd get a picture that looks like this, where you have your parabola that hits at 2 points. For this guy, the parabola hits at 1 point. If it ends up being negative, you get 2 complex roots. And you have no zeros, which means your parabola is out here in space somewhere and it doesn't hit the x-axis. So that's what we can tell from just b squared minus 4ac. So at that point when I had the negative 3, I knew I was going to be over here. I knew my parabola never hit the x-axis. And I'm able to figure it out from there. If it's 0, this is where you have your perfect square. Perfect square binomials like x plus 2 quantity squared. If it hits at negative 2 twice, it's going to be x plus 2 quantity squared because I need an x squared to get back to the original equation. So I need x times another x, so we get 2 of them. Here, you just get x plus p, x plus q. But it comes down to just being able to take one of these equations and kind of working through there. So let me I don't want that one. All right. Now, these take up a lot of room, so on the worksheet, you're going to have to probably do all your work on a separate sheet of paper and staple it to it. Now, I did a couple examples up here. Since I'm recording this right now, so all your wonderful little comments are getting on this, which just makes me more mad. So don't make your little silly noises that you like to make. And let's keep our questions professional here. Let's not screw around, that type of thing. Yep. You're good? Good? Okay. Remember, these are going to be online probably by the end of the day. So I'll have these up there. This is for number 1. This is for number 2. And even though it says K, I always end up using X. It's just been ingrained in my brain that X is the number that we're supposed to use. So please just make sure that you are using the proper variables. Now, for example, let's take a look at number 8. So for you guys, we're looking at number 8. And if you want to take a look at what we're doing here, just go ahead, look at the video, and it's about the 13-minute mark. You can press pause and take a look at what we're doing. That's fine. No issues there. Now, the first thing we want to do is we want to put this in the proper form. And the proper form is ax squared it's been redacted. Those problems were top secret. You need to have this in ax squared. Let me zoom in a lot here so you can see the problem. We need this in ax squared plus, or in this it's going to be like aa squared plus, I'll just say in this, we need an ax squared plus bx plus c form. We're using a's instead of x's, which is not that big a deal. But is it equal to 0? No. So the first thing I need to do is take 8a squared plus 6a equals negative 5 and add 5 to both sides. By doing that, I'll get 8a squared plus 6a plus 5 is equal to 0. And since this worksheet says don't even try to factor, use the quadratic formula, I need my a, my b, And you might want to leave a little bit of space. That's fine. I need A. What's A equal to? What's B equal to? What's C equal to? What's my A value? 8. So what's 2A? I'll go with 16 instead. Just 2 times 8. What's my B value? 6. What's B squared? 36. What's my C value? 5. Now I need 4AC, so I need 4 times my A, which is 8, times C, which is 5. Alright, so now, since multiplication is commutative, I can take 8 times 5 first. That's 40 times 3 is, that's 40 times 4, which is 160. So now, I want to subtract these two. So I want to do 36 minus 160, which is going to be negative. Take 160 minus 30, which will get me to 130. This is going to be equal to 124. So this guy is my B squared minus 4AC. Now, is it positive, negative, or 0? It's negative. What does that tell me about the parabola? Is it going to hit the x-axis, or is it not going to hit the x-axis? If it's negative, it doesn't. It's not going to hit the x-axis. So I'm going to get complex roots. Which means an I is going to be out of here somewhere. Alright, so let me zoom out just a little bit. So we go x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. X is equal to, what's the opposite of 6? Yep, it's going to be negative 6. Plus or minus the square root of negative 124. Is that a perfect square? Whoops. Well, as I've said since the beginning of school year, we're in big boy and girl math. And this stuff, it isn't one-steppers anymore. Life is not a one-step equation. I wish it was, because it would be a whole lot easier. But it isn't. And then I'm going to divide by 16. The 16 is, yeah, but the 124 isn't. What do I do with that negative? Alright, so I get x is equal to negative 6 plus or minus I times the square root of 124 over 16. And now, at this point, like for our first quiz on this stuff, I might say just leave it like this and don't simplify the radical. Because then this tells me that you got all the parts and we're not that big of a deal. If you wanted to simplify the radical, then you'd have to find a perfect square that's going to go into this. And 4 goes into here 31 times. This would actually be 2i times the square root of 34. So, or 31. So 124, if I take out a 4, it'd be 4 times 31. So what's going to happen to the 4 to pull it out? So this should be 2i times the square root of 31. So I could actually say this is going to be negative 6 plus or minus 2i times the square root of 31 divided by 16. And then I can divide out the 2. 2 goes into 2 once, goes into there 8, goes in there 3 times. X would be equal to negative 3 plus or minus I times the square root of 31 over 8. That's the reduced form. That's the answer for that one. I might ask you not to reduce it right off the bat.